Hey guys, this is Silver Reef. Today I am going to be showing you how I typically make a track on the Novation Circuit. I've had this groove box for about a year now, and in that time I've been able to pick up a few tips and tricks that I think might help you when writing songs on the circuit. I am using the Red Means recording pack from his YouTube channel. I've gotten a lot of mileage out of this pack. I think it has a lot of useful sounds and samples that are applicable to a lot of different genres and styles. Highly recommend it. I think he sells it for $5 on his online store. So let's get started. So one of the biggest limitations I found of the circuit is that you've only got 2 synthesizer tracks. You have 4 different tracks for the drums, which I usually find to be more than enough, but these 2 synthesizer tracks are quite a limitation. Usually you find you'll want something like a bass track and a lead track, maybe an arpeggio and a pad or some kind of chord going behind that. So ideally we'd have something like 4 tracks, but we're stuck with 2. I get around this limitation by usually recording multiple parts on one synthesizer track using the same patch. So for example, right here I've got this kind of bell sounding patch loaded up, and with this one I can usually play bass and some kind of keys or a lead on top. It works better for some patches than others, especially when you start to add your different effects to it. It can get pretty muddy and messy. By using this workaround, I feel that I can really flesh out my tracks a lot better. They don't sound so anemic anymore. So I've got a brand new session loaded up here on my circuit. Usually I like to start off with the C major scale. I find that it's just easiest for me to come up with ideas and melodies when I'm here. Sometimes I'll be in the C minor scale. Sometimes I'll just switch it to the full keyboard mode. This is a little limiting because you only get 2 octaves to play with, and where I'm trying to do basses and keys in the same part, it's sometimes easier just to switch it to the major scale. That way, when I bring up the full view, I can get 4 octaves to play with here. I'm pretty basic when it comes to music theory, so I'm not usually using anything outside of your standard major and minor scales. So either of those usually works for me. I don't have to switch to the full keyboard layout very often. So let's switch it back to the C major scale. So usually what I do when I start off with a track is I just start playing around. I find a synth patch that I like on the first track and I just mess around. Honestly, most of my work is 80% messing around on the circuit. I create a lot of junk and I go through ideas really fast. And when I finally find something that I like and something that sticks, I'll try to develop it a little bit more. Maybe 1 out of 4 tracks that I create using this method I will keep and upload to YouTube. The rest I'll just save somewhere and maybe I'll come back to it later and I like it a little bit more at that point and I can develop it a little bit more, but for the most part they're forgotten. But I just make ideas really quickly and try to develop them as quickly as I can. So right now I've kind of got this idea in my head that I want to make this nostalgic synth pop kind of thing. I don't know. I never know how to classify my music into any genre. Usually I just call it synth pop and call that good. Right now, I kind of know that I want to do something moving from F major to C major. It kind of gives it like a nostalgic feel, and that's kind of what I'm feeling today. This chord progression will also let us maybe move to something like A minor later in the song if we want to add a little bit of variety and tension. So if we go from F major to C major to A minor, it can sound something like this. Then we can go to F again. I don't know, something like that. I kind of got that idea in my head right now. So usually what I'll do is I will lay down a bass line first. In this case, I am probably just going to record it live. I think that's probably what'll be easiest. So I'm going to come over here to the patterns. First, I guess I should tap a tempo. Okay, that sounds about right. And usually I'll lay down a quick metronome on drum 1 just so I can stay in time. So we'll just use the kick drum. I kind of liked what we were playing with right there, so I'm just going to go ahead and lay that down. So I'm going to need 2 patterns to record this chord progression. So I'm just going to choose 2 on synth 1, and let's record it. All right, we've got that going. Let's go ahead and put that melody on top. All right, sounds good to me. I think I'd like to add a little bit more variety. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my patterns and just duplicate these 2. And in this one, I'll maybe change this one to an octave higher, or an octave and a fifth. And this an octave higher. And maybe take that one out. Let's do the whole thing. Let's maybe do this one on an E instead of a G. You know what? I do want a G on top right there. And something right there. Let's change the gate of that to be just a little bit shorter to be in line with the other ones. Sounds good to me. So let's move on to the drums now that we've got a basic bass line and melody going. I'll admit, drum programming is kind of my weakness. I have a hard time adding variation and different things to keep drum patterns interesting. I feel like I've been getting a little bit better since I've been working with the circuit, but it's still something I could work on. So let's start off with the kick and the snare. I'm going to choose 4 bars again, and I'm actually going to record this one live as well. So let's do that. Nope. Let's do 4 bars on synth 1. Okay, there we go. Okay, that's all right. Let's add a snare now. I don't like those default sounds, so let's change those a little bit. I think... Okay, cool. Let's do something with the hi-hat now. The sample flip feature on the circuit is really cool. It just gives you the ability to use multiple samples on one drum track to give you a little bit more variation. So when I'm recording hi-hats, usually I will record them here in the sample view, where you pick a sample. That way I can play live. That way you can get a little bit more variation in the sounds that you're using for your hi-hats. So let's record this. Oh, and I forgot to choose multiple patterns. So let's do 4 again, and we'll record this. Okay, I like the sound of that. Usually what I'll do at this point is, for the hi-hats, I've got every single step recording right here. So maybe I'll go through and erase a couple of these. Maybe I'll do a couple of 16th notes with the gate function right here. take it down. And of course, we have to add the sidechain. I think this is one of the best features of the circuit. Let's take the level of the hi-hats down a little bit too. Okay, at this point, let's add a little bit of effects. So we'll go to the effects tab. Maybe a little bit of reverb on the hi-hats might sound nice. And maybe the snare too. Yeah, just gives it a little bit of space. Let's add some to the synth line too. Where we don't have a super fast changing or complex bass line, adding reverb on the track where we have the bass isn't too much of a problem. It doesn't muddy up the sound too much. Let's see if maybe we can find a good delay time that works well with the lead. Let's solo that to hear it just by itself. I think I like this preset the best. Let's stick with that one. I wonder if delay would sound good on the hi-hats as well. There we go. Adds a little bit of interesting 16th note rhythms to the hi-hats. Let's tone that down just a little bit. We want it to be really subtle. Let's just play with the synth 1 parameters a little bit. So that sounds like release time. This is one of my major gripes with the circuit. You've got 64 different synth presets that are available to you. You can go through all of them and preview them like this. And if you're just messing around and looking for ideas, then this can be fun and you can play with the different macros up here and really mess up the sound. But these macros aren't consistent. They are assigned to whatever the patch designers decided to assign them to. Maybe one time patch 5 is filter frequency, another time it's going to be your attack envelope, another time it's going to be the chorus level. It's never consistent, and so the only way you can find out what they do is by messing around. Sometimes they don't have the parameter that you need to adjust mapped. If you're looking for a specific sound, it can be really hard to work with the circuit because usually you won't be able to find a patch that matches exactly what you need. Let's try and find a patch on synth 2 that complements what we've already laid down on synth 1. So I'm going to turn the sidechain on real quick and maybe put on some effects. That usually makes things sound a little bit better when I'm searching for a sound. Our song sounds kind of bare right now. I think I'd really like either like an arpeggio or some kind of pad to fill in the space a little bit more. So let's look for one of those. I really like the sound of this one. Let's try this one out real quick. Usually what I'll do with drum track 3 and 4, I'll put 2 different kinds of hi-hats on these. So on drum 3, if we solo that, we've got this one that's a little bit varied. It's using a whole bunch of different samples. Usually what I'll do is in the mixer, I'll pan this one to the left or right. And with our delay, you've even got a little bit still hanging out in the right. And then on drum 4, I will put a consistent hi-hat that kind of fills out the high frequency space a little bit more. Let's see. So usually on drum track 4, I'll record a consistent hi-hat, maybe like a ride or something like that. And that one's really nice to drag in and out when you're performing the song. It can add a little bit of a build or a little bit of tension when you add and remove that. So let's record that. So by recording live like this, you're also adding velocity, which can add a lot of variation to your sound. So you don't have the same robotic hi-hat sound going over and over again. You've got a little bit of variation in the volume. And also what I really like to do is play with the decay time up here. You can record this using automation, which just adds another element of movement. And let's add a little bit of reverb to that hi-hat as well. I'd even like to add a little bit of variety to the snares. Let's maybe do a couple of different snares. Let's turn this off. Yeah, I like that. Oh, backwards. Cool, I like that. If we add synth 1 to that. I'm thinking this is a little bit slow. Let's speed it up a little bit. Okay, let's record something onto synth track number 2 now. So we'll use this portion of synth track 2 to act as kind of a pad, and then if we want, we can play on top of that in the higher registers. Let's put a little bit of delay on that. So at this point, what I can do is, let's save this real quick. I'm going to duplicate these 4 bars for synth track 2. And that way we can have one set of 4 bars with just kind of this pad sound. And then we can have that same pad sound, but with kind of a melody on top. So let's practice that. At this point, if we want to break it down a little bit, we just take out the hi-hats. I'd even maybe like a little bit more sidechain on this. That keeps it from getting too busy. But if we take away the drum, it comes back in full force. Let's just turn it down a little bit in the mixer. At this point, let's maybe try recording a different progression on the bass line. Let's duplicate these. So what if we went, instead of going from F to C, we go from F to A? Let's try that out. Let's double those up, just to make it cut through the mix a little bit more. Let's play a little bit with the synth parameters. We haven't touched those too much, and there's some interesting things sometimes you can find in there. So probably the most interesting parameters in here are the attack and release time. All right, let's look at synth 2. Oh, that's really pretty. Okay, so if I was recording this song, I would get an idea in my mind what exactly the progression of the song should be. I'll probably start off with synth 1. Was there like a filter macro for this? Kind of. Bring in the kick. Go to one of those A minor ones. Yeah. That's still a little bit too loud for right now. Oh, I had sent to way too strong coming in. Let's try that. I'll be honest, I'm not feeling this one too much. This one would probably go into my pile of look at later, probably never use again. It's just a little bit too down-tempo for my tastes. One quick trick I would like to show you guys. Usually when you're recording in a single session, you're limited to these 8 4-bar patterns to record in, and that doesn't give you a whole lot of space to work around in. If you hold Shift, you can cherry pick these different patterns to some arbitrary length, and that kind of can help you get around it. But what I actually prefer to do is to just save the track over multiple sessions. So like say we'd have this one in this slot. If we hit save and click on another session spot, you'll see we just have duplicated sessions. And that way I can go through and clear all of these patterns and then have additional room where I could then record more patterns and then switch between sessions as I need to access those patterns. It's a little bit jumpy sometimes when switching between sessions, especially if you have different patches on either of those sessions, or if like your reverb or delay settings change. You can definitely hear a couple of artifacts from that. But for the most part, it's pretty smooth, and it can definitely help extend the limitation of these 8 4-bar patterns in the circuit. Anyway, thanks for watching. This is kind of the first tutorial I've done. I didn't really like the end result of what we came out with, but it was fun to be able to show you guys a little bit of what I do when I'm working with the circuit. Hopefully this is just the first of many to come.